June 6, 1892. Dear Martha, we rode in the cotton wagon for what seemed like forever. Daniel, Ethel, and I were so tired that the gentle rocking of the wagon lulled us to sleep. The driver's voice woke us. He said, "You must like cotton, because this is the second time today you've been sleeping in my wagon." He smiled. "I'm Joe." I said, "Thank you for helping us." He said, "Well, this is as far as I go. Where are you headed?" I said, "I'm not really sure. I don't know where my folks are. We got separated. But I do know someone in St. Augustine. Or at least she will be in St. Augustine sometime. She was with a wagon train." Joe said, "If someone is looking for you, they'll probably stay on the main road. See this trail?" He pointed to a path where the grass had been worn down. "Follow that trail. You'll come to a cabin on a spring way down yonder. That's where Wanda Watson lives. Tell her Joe sent you. She'll treat you right." Joe climbed into the wagon. He said, "It's not much, but here's 2 carrots. They were going to be for my mules, but I'll get them something else." We thanked him for the carrots and waved as he drove off. I said, "Daniel, you don't have to come with me. Here's your carrot if you want to go off on your own. They're not very big, but they're better than nothing." He said, "Where else have I got to go? It's safer if we stick together. Besides, we're both Bodains." Hearing him say that reminded me of Pat. I was glad that Daniel wanted to come with me. Traveling alone could be scary and dangerous, especially at night. And after all, Daniel is my cousin. We set off down the trail. Daniel said, "Teddy, how'd you get a boy's name?" I said, "It's Theodosia, but everyone calls me Teddy." While we walked, we told each other everything we could think about our families. Daniel's mama died when he was young, so he doesn't remember much about her. His pap, Daniel Bodain, was a carpenter. He grew up in North Florida. He remembered going to a family reunion one time when he was a boy, but never knew his relatives after that. Daniel was 11, going on 12, 1 year older than me. That made me remember my birthday. I'd completely forgotten that I was about to turn 11. I said, "What day's today?" He said, "I don't know, Thursday? Friday?" I said, "No, I mean what calendar date?" I tried to remember. Hadn't Dr. Winkleplex said something about June being 2 days away? Daniel said, "Why?" I said, "Because my birthday is June 4th. But I think it's past now. So much has happened. I forgot my own birthday." He said, "How old are you?" I said, "I'm 11. I've been 11 for days, and I didn't even know it." He said, "Happy birthday. That means we're both 11 for now." We found the cabin late this afternoon. A woman came out to see us. I said, "Joe sent us." She looked at me in my dusty, dirty dress and my bundle tied to a stick. She looked at Daniel, who looked like he hadn't seen the inside of a bathtub in weeks and wasn't too friendly with barbers either. Then she looked at Ethelbert. His head dropped, and his tail hung between his legs. She said, "If Joe sent you, then you're in the right place. Do you like fried fish?" Daniel and I said yes at the same time. She said, "Then what are you waiting for? Let's go fishing." Love, Teddy. June 7th, 1892. Dear Martha, Miss Wanda Watson is a whirlwind. She's the sun coming out on a cloudy day. She's a cool drink of water when you're hot and thirsty. She's as old as the earth. No kidding, she must be about 90 years old. Yesterday, right off the bat, she took us fishing in the spring by the cabin. We used bamboo poles, like Pap and I did before. Daniel was handy with a fishing pole, I might say. Wanda, she doesn't like Miss Wanda, gave us slices of stale bread, and we made dough balls for bait. Boy, do fish love dough balls. We sat on big, flat rocks right on the edge of the spring. Sun was low in the afternoon sky. Wanda said, "It's supper time. Pull them in." And that's what we did. We caught lots and lots of fish. Every time we pulled one in, Daniel yelled a big woo-hoo, and Wanda shouted, "Yee-haw!" Daniel and I were so busy we didn't notice that Wanda had made a fire right there on the spring bank. She melted grease in the biggest skillet I've ever seen. I bet she could have fried 3 dozen eggs in that thing. She made a big pot of grits and set them to boil. When Daniel and I had a pile of warmouth perch, bluegill, and trout, Wanda called, "Okay, Teddy, come clean your fish. Daniel, you keep fishing. Boys can eat a heap of fish." I said, "I don't have a knife, Wanda." I thought she'd say, "I'll clean them for you," but she didn't. She pulled a pocket knife out of her apron and handed it to me. That belonged to my son Samuel. He cleaned many a fish with it. I'd watched Papa clean fish. "It couldn't be that hard," I said. "I hope I do it right." "I've seen my pap do it." Wanda said, "Hunger is the best teacher there is." I took a deep breath and began cleaning. It really isn't hard. You just have to remember all the steps. Scales, head, belly, entrails, bloodline. Then they're ready to fry up in the pan. I took the fish to Wanda in a bucket. I said, "They're scaled, cleaned, and I buried the heads and guts." She was surprised. "With you wearing that pink dress, I figured you for a city girl that got herself lost. Now I'm thinking you're a country girl with a good head on her shoulders. Somebody's taught you right." Her face was the kindest, sweetest face I'd ever seen. Daniel came to help. He said, "I caught 8 more and put them on a line." Wanda said, "Two of you have some right handy skills. Wash your hands in the spring, dredge the fish in this cornmeal, then fry them up nice and brown." By the time we got back from washing our hands, the grease was sizzling hot. We used a long fork to lay the fish in the skillet. There is no better smell than frying fish. Frying fish you caught yourself. While we fried the fish, Wanda mixed eggs and buttermilk and the rest of the cornmeal and added some onions and green peppers. I said, "What is that for?" She said, "I'm making us some hush puppies. Can't eat fried fish without hush puppies." By the time I dished up the grits and heaped our plates with fish, my mouth was watering. Daniel's stomach was growling and Ethelbert was whining and about to pester me to death. Wanda threw us each a hush puppy. They practically melted in our mouths. They were so good. She said, See how you hushed? Even the puppy." We all laughed. Before we ate, Wanda said, "Let's thank the good Lord." Daniel and I bowed our heads. Wanda prayed nice and loud, "Lord, please help these 2 runaway children. Thank you for this food. Give us a night of rest and good weather. Amen." In my mind, I prayed, "And keep Mama and Pap safe wherever they may be. Love, Teddy." June 8th, 1892. Dear Martha, after supper, Wanda told us a story. Sitting near the campfire, we were surrounded by twinkly fireflies. Daniel and I reached to catch them in our hands. Wanda said, "The firefly didn't always have a light, you know. Once upon a time, he was just a simple beetle. Each day, he slept, but at night, he flew down to the river and sat on the bank. And there, he cried, because there was nothing special about him. Oh, me, the butterfly is beautiful. The ladybug has spots. The mantis prays. The centipede has 100 legs, and the cricket sings for all to hear. But there's nothing special about me. I'm just a beetle. No one takes notice of a simple beetle." In those days, the panther was the ruler of all the creatures. All the animals came to him for advice, because he was wise and true. Not a night passed that he wasn't visited by the black bear, the white-tailed deer, the grass snake, the pelican, the eagle, or other creatures. One evening, when the firefly was crying by the river, the alligators came to the surface of the water to gossip. They took no notice of the firefly because he was just a simple beetle. The smallest alligator said, "Tonight, I will eat a catfish. I will lie still on the bottom, and when the catfish swims close, I will catch him by the whiskers." The other alligators nodded their heads and said, "Good." They snapped their jaws in delight. The middle-sized alligator said, "Tonight I will eat a turtle. When she swims to the log, I will catch her by the leg." The other alligators nodded their heads and said, "Good." They snapped their jaws in delight. The largest alligator said, "A catfish and a turtle might be a fine meal for you, but tonight I will dine on panther." The other alligator said, "How can this be? because they knew that the panther was wise but fierce. The largest alligator said, "I will wait quietly below the surface of the water. Only my eyes will be popping up at the top. When the panther comes to drink by moonlight at the water's edge, I will leap out and seize him by the tail." The other alligators thumped their tails and said, "We will watch to see what comes to pass." Now, the firefly, who was only a simple beetle, knew someone had to warn the panther. If he had been a butterfly or a ladybug or a mantis or a cricket, the alligators would have noticed him. But he was only a simple beetle, so off he flew, unnoticed, to warn the panther. The firefly flitted up into the trees, up to the highest branches, where the panther was meeting with the raccoon, the osprey, and the squirrel. He flew to the panther's ear and whispered, "Great Panther, tonight the largest alligator is laying a trap for you. As you go to the river to drink by moonlight, he will be hidden under the water. Only his eyes will be peeping up at the top. When you bend to lap the water, he will leap out and seize you by the tail." The panther said, "Who is this that warns me? Who is this that saves my life?" The firefly said, "It is only I, a simple beetle. I'm sorry I'm not beautiful, like the butterfly. I do not have spots nor 100 legs, and alas, I do not sing." And the panther said, "Why do you envy what others have? I will reward you with something all your own. From this moment on, early in the evening, you will blink a twinkly light to remind all the creatures that you saved the great panther's life. And as for the alligator, starting tonight, his eyes will shine and gleam as a warning to all creatures that he is hiding below the surface, ready to leap out and seize them." The alligator, who heard the commanding voice of the panther all the way from the river, growled and sunk into the watery depths. But the firefly smiled and fluttered down into the trees and bushes, blinking his yellow-green glimmer for all to see. And that is how the firefly got his light. Such a good story. Wanda Watson might be the best storyteller in the whole wide world. Martha, I wish you could have been here too. Love, Teddy. June 9th, 1892. Dear Martha, after the storytelling, the fire burned low. Crickets chirped in the bushes, and frogs croaked down by the river. We heard the sad, lonely call of the whippoorwill. Wanda said, "Let's make up your palates, because by the looks of you, you two could fall asleep standing up in the middle of a tornado." I don't have much for a pallet, but I think these quilts will do. We spread the quilts down and wrapped up in them. Wanda said, "That's good, right near the fire. This smoke will keep the skeeters away." Daniel lay on one side of the fire and I lay on the other. We thanked Wanda for everything, fishing, supper, the story, and putting us up for the night. She said, "I should thank you for the good company. Gets lonesome out here. You children have made me forget that I'll be 92 years old come September. I've outlived everyone, my husband, my son. I don't know how many dogs and cats now. Have a good night. It'll be morning before you know it." Daniel was asleep before Wanda made it into her cottage. I looked at him across the fire. It was still amazing to me that I was looking at my cousin. Daniel and I are family. I have lost my baby brother, my parents are missing, but I am not alone. I have a cousin. Daniel's parents are dead for sure, but now he has me. The next morning, we slept late. I woke to the smell of bacon frying. Wanda was making breakfast. She said, "We got to talk. Come eat, and then I need to ask you a few questions." Daniel and I ate like bears coming out of hibernation. Wanda said, "I don't need to know why you're running or where you're running to, but the trail you come in on dead ends at this spring. I have an old John boat I don't use anymore. It's still around. It's propped up by that tree. I oil the bottom a few times a year, just in case someone might need it. And now someone does. It has 2 poles. It'd be about right for 2 of you, and 2 oars. If you follow this spring, you'll come to the Ocklawaha River. Take that south. When the river forks, bear right or west. That river, the Silver River, will lead you to Silver Springs. I said, Wanda, we're not running away because we done something wrong. She said, oh, I know that. A guilty conscience always shows. I said, a bad man is after something I have, something my pap worked hard for. I'm trying to keep it safe. Daniel said, he married my stepmother after my pap died. They're both bad news. I'm running away with Teddy because I don't have any other place to go, and because we found out we're kin. I said, cousins, we're both Bodains. Wanda smiled. That's nice. It's always good to have family. I miss my family. Everyone wants to live a long time, but life's only special when you share it with folks you love. I hate to see you go, but if someone is following you, it might be best for you to pack up and head down the spring. I didn't want to leave Wanda, but the thought of Jimbo finding us made me agree that we had to go. We didn't want to take her boat, but she insisted. What am I going to do with a John boat? I'm too old to pull it, and I can fish right here in the spring if I get hungry. I'm staying put right here. You take it and use it however it helps you. She packed us a sack of food and some matches. She gave Daniel a pair of boots. The ones he owned had holes in the soles and were too small. She gave me the pocket knife that had belonged to her son Samuel. When I gathered my belongings, she said, Teddy, if you're on the run, that pretty dress might call attention. She helped me put on a pair of overalls and an old shirt. We'll have to roll the cuffs, but these will help you blend in. Being with Wanda was almost as good as being with Mama. Almost. Love, Teddy. June 10th, 1892. Dear Martha, I told Wanda I've never done this before. Pull a John boat, I mean. Wanda said, learning's half the fun. You'll figure it out. I'm gonna miss you too. Come back sometime. I'd love to know you got to where you're going. She waved and we waved back. The spring was slow moving, so it gave me a chance to learn how to pull. Daniel had pulled before, but I had to learn how to stand in a boat, balance, and pull at the same time. The trick was to stick the pole down in the mud, shove forward, pull the pole out, and start all over again. Daniel pulled on the one side, I pulled on the other. With 2 of us, it wasn't too bad. The John boat surged ahead steadily and silently. The sky was as blue as Mama's eyes. All around us, trees rustled their leaves, turtles stretched out on flat rocks or fallen logs, taken in the sun. Butterflies opened and closed their wings. I saw the same kind of bird I had seen in the swamp. I said, I've seen that kind of bird before. What is it called? Daniel said, that's an anhinga. Some folks call it a snake bird. See that pointy beak? That's how he gets his dinner. I said, how's he do that? Daniel said, look, there he goes. You'll see. The anhinga flew straight up, turned, headed down to the water, and folded his wings back. Chung! He knifed through the water like a fish. I watched, but he didn't come up. I said, is he drowning? Daniel said, he's fine, just watch. I had to wait a minute or two, but the anhinga finally surfaced. His beak had speared a shiny ringlet fish. Daniel said, now see what he does? The anhinga tossed his beak, and the fish flew up into the air. The anhinga caught it, tossed it up again and again. He finally caught the fish head first. This seemed to be what he was waiting for. He swallowed the fish whole. We watched as the bulging lump of fish slid down the anhinga's long, crooked neck. I shook my head. Amazing. We pulled the boat until we began to notice the current picking up. The spring widened and turned. We were in the river. It wasn't a huge river, but bigger than the spring. The bad thing was we had a pull against the current. Who ever heard of a river flowing north? Daniel said, we could still pull, but let's keep to the bank. The river gets faster and deeper in the middle. We need to paddle. We've got oars. I said, how did you learn all this? Daniel said, Pap, you love doing things, going places, learning stuff, teaching me. I said, I bet you miss him. Daniel said, he was all I had. Thought about how much Daniel knew about living outdoors on his own. I felt kind of dumb when I compared myself to him. I planned to pay attention and learn as much as I could. Mosquitoes started biting. He pulled to the riverbank and said, let's mud up. I said, let's what? He scooped up a handful of wet mud. Mosquitoes can't bite through this. We covered ourselves with a thin layer of river mud on our arms, necks, hands, faces. If we didn't look a sight, Ethel looked at me like I'd gone crazy. I thought, I wish Martha could see me now. Teddy Bodain, Queen of the Mud. Love, Teddy. June 11th, 1892. Dear Martha, sometimes we took turns poling, sometimes we had to row. I said we're like Tom and Huck. Daniel said, who? I said Tom Sawyer and Huckleberry Finn. You know, from the book Tom Sawyer. Did you ever read it? Daniel said, no. Pap's job kept us on the move a lot, and I never did get much schooling. I thought about Miss Pettigrew in our school in Salters Grove. And I thought about Miss Melman and the wagon train school. I wondered what it would be like to not have any schooling. I said, but you know so much, Daniel. You're smart about a lot of things. Daniel said, but not the things that would help the most. I said, what do you mean? Daniel said, did you ever wonder why I didn't run away before now? I mean, as miserable as that place was? I said, yes. Can't imagine you living in that place. I wanted to leave the first day. Daniel said, I wanted to run. I wanted to run in the worst way. I can't read. I don't even know how to read my own name. I can't read the name of a town or map or directions. How far would I get? Now it was my turn to pull over to the riverbank. The shore was flat and wet with mud. I ripped a long, thin branch off a dead bush and wrote in the mud, Daniel Bodain. Daniel said, what are you doing? I said, see these letters? That's your name, Daniel Bodain. Handed him the stick. Now you copy it underneath. It's not hard. I thought he might be embarrassed for me to be his teacher, but he was happy. I was willing to teach him. Copied his name and said, I remember some of my letters. There's a D in my first name and my last name, and an A, and an I, too. I just have trouble remembering what all they say. Their sounds, I mean. I know the letters have sounds that form words. You'll have to help me, Teddy. We must have stayed there on that bank for an hour. Before we left, Daniel could write his own name and read 2 whole sentences. Daniel and Teddy Bodain are cousins. They are running away from Jimbo Dud. We were so excited we started shouting and laughing. Ethelbert barked and chased his tail. That made us laugh even harder. Daniel used a stick to draw a face next to the name, Jimbo Dud. The man's head had long hair, just like the real Jimbo. At the moment, we thought we were the 2 smartest kids who had ever lived. We danced and laughed and acted like 2 whippersnappers. But the truth is, we were just full of ourselves. And it was all a lot of monkey business. Don't you like to act like that sometimes? Martha, I realize that Daniel and I are both teachers. Neither one of us is dumb. We both have things to learn, that's all. Daniel's teaching me things about living outdoors, and I'm teaching him how to read. It's kind of nice helping each other learn. I miss Mama and Pat. I miss my little brother Dylan. I miss Miss Melman, Minnie and Haley. I miss Travis Lark, and of course, I miss you, Martha. It sure is nice to have a cousin. Love, Teddy. June 12th, 1892. Dear Martha, I don't know when I'll get to mail your letters because I don't have any money. I'm going to keep writing like I promised. When the sun was sinking low in the sky, we decided we better find a place to camp. At the bend of the river, there was a little clearing on the shore with an orange grove and several oak trees. I said, this would be a great camp. We can eat oranges and be easy to find firewood. Daniel said, "You're right. But what else? Why is this a good place to camp? There's something important, something you can't ever forget. If you grew up in Florida, you'd look for it first off." What was he talking about? I looked more carefully, squinching my eyes. "I don't know," I said. He gave me a hint. "The shore is much higher than the river. Why is that important?" "The shore is much higher than the river." I snapped my fingers. "Alligators." Daniel said, "You're learning the outdoor ways, Teddy. Soon you won't need me." He faked a heart swoon. "Your poor old cousin will be left to linger and die, all alone." I love his sense of humor. I realized I never wanted to be left alone again, now that I found my cousin. I didn't want to be corny and say it out loud, but I thought, we are family. We need each other. We belong to each other. You know how boys hate that stuff? So I said, "Keep teaching me stuff. I want to know everything there is to know about living outdoors when I get back with Mama and Pep." Daniel got quiet. He never says much when I mention getting back with Mama and Pep. It's strange. Does he think they won't accept him? Does he think I'm wrong and they're really dead? Ethelbert jumped out of the boat and scrambled up the bank. He loves to run and jump and chase squirrels and act crazy when we stop. As usual, he went sniffing all around the orange grove, barking and snuffling and digging around and things. Daniel said, "Why don't you get a fire going? I'll get us some supper." Right off, I looked around to make sure the ground was dry and smooth and didn't have any anthills. Then I used a piece of wood to scrape out of sight for our campfire. I gathered kindling sticks and some bigger pieces of wood, got rocks from near the river, and made a ring around our campfire. I laid out some matches Wanda had given us and started a fire. The trees were loaded with ripe oranges. I picked an armful and brought them back to our camp. I found a big flat rock, washed it in the river, and put it near the campfire. I used the flat rock as a table and cut the oranges in half with my pocket knife. The handle was worn from years of use, but the blade was sharp. Daniel wasn't back yet, so I got out some fishing line, a hook, a sinker, and found some crickets for bait. By the time he got back with a fat rabbit, cleaned and ready to cook. I had caught 3 fish, cleaned them, buried the entrails. He grinned. "The Bodains are eating high on the hog tonight." He showed me how to find a long branch to hold over the fire to cook the rabbit, some for the fish. We ate our meal, drank our oranges, and I peeled off strips of rabbit and fish for Ethel, who was making a pest out of himself by whining for food. I was sorry I didn't have any of Wanda's hush puppies to give him. We laid out our feast, lapped up every little scrap, licked our fingers. We didn't have any blankets, so I spread out my pink dress to lay on and gave Daniel my pinafore. I said, "It's not a blanket, but at least your face won't be in the dirt." We built up the fire to burn during the night to keep animals away. Daniel lay on his side of the fire, and I lay on mine. Ethel curled up beside me. I thought how lucky I am. I have Daniel and I have Ethelbert. All is well, for now. Love, Teddy. June 13th, 1892. Dear Martha, can you imagine what it's like to wake up and your dog is gone? Yep, that's what happened, all right. Ethelbert was nowhere to be seen. At first I thought he was just off snuffling in the orange grove, but he never came back, even when I called him. Ethel's never wandered off before. Daniel went immediately to the riverbank to look for alligator tracks, but there weren't any. We called and searched the orange grove. By this time I was beginning to panic. I said, "Daniel, I cannot continue without Ethel. I won't leave him." Daniel said, "We're not going to leave him. He's a dog. He's probably off exploring or chasing squirrels." I got my slingshot from my bundle, and Daniel got his. He grinned. We walked through the orange grove. Daniel cut a long leafy branch and held it out in front of us, waving it to the left and then to the right. I said, "What on earth are you doing?" He said, "I'm saving your life, Teddy Bodain. An orange grove is filled with the biggest spiders you've ever seen. They're called banana spiders. They won't kill you, but they'll scare you to death. At night, they build their webs from tree to tree. Without this branch, you might run right into one." I shivered. You know how I hate spiders. From then on, I walked behind Daniel just to be sure. Picked up a few pebbles along the way. If I was going to be attacked by spiders, I wanted to be ready. When we had walked almost to the end of the grove, we heard voices. They were coming from a clearing up ahead. A man was talking. He said, "Well, if this isn't my lucky day. They say the chickens come home to roost, but in my case, it's the dogs. Look what I found." A dog whimpered. I knew that whimper. It was Ethelbert. A woman's voice said, "Xavier, let him go." By this time, Daniel and I were almost to the clearing, and I saw the red and yellow wagon. Dr. Zorn was holding Ethelbert by the scruff of the neck. He said, "Get in my cage." Without warning, I burst out into the clearing, angrier than I'd ever been. I shouted, "Get your hands off my dog." Ethel twisted his neck, trying to get away. Dr. Zorn said, "How dare you? Who are you to come into my camp using a demanding tone?" He peered at me as if trying to remember where he had seen me before. I repeated, "Get your hands off my dog." Dr. Zorn said, "You're mistaken. This is my dog." I said, "The constable gave him to me. He is my dog." Daniel grabbed Dr. Zorn's arm and said, "Mister, if you know what's good for you, you better give us this dog back." Next thing I knew, he was switching Dr. Zorn with the leafy branch. Dr. Zorn bent forward, trying to get away from the branch, but still holding on to Ethel's neck. I reached for my slingshot and one of the pebbles. When Dr. Zorn bent over, I put a pebble in the sling, pulled it way back, and aimed for his behind. Dr. Zorn screamed, "Ow!" With one hand, he grabbed his rear, and with the other, he tightened his grip on Ethel. Ethel squealed. At that exact moment, the biggest banana spider you've ever seen jumped from the branch to Dr. Zorn's face. Martha, I have never heard anyone scream that loud while beating himself in the face with both hands. Ethelbert, Daniel, and I ran back to our campsite, doused our campfire with water, and jumped in the boat. Ethel sat in my lap shaking. It wasn't until we were at least a mile away that Daniel and I started laughing. A banana spider saved our sweet Ethelbert. What a day. Love, Teddy.